This map shows the global real estate market as Christopher Columbus first saw it. Spain and Portugal drew a line right down the middle, dividing up the established gold and spice routes of Asia and South America. For more than 100 years, European explorers largely ignored North America, dismissing it as a vacant obstacle on the way to the riches of the East. The English eventually arrived and established 13 coastal colonies, only to later fight a brutal war to break away from British rule. The revolution was less about grand philosophy and more about a desperate dispute over taxation. After winning independence, the new nation was struggling to survive. The 13 colonies functioned more like 13 separate, deeply indebted countries that were united in name only. Geopolitically, they were boxed in. To the north, south, and west, massive European empires held all the surrounding territory, leaving the early United States trapped against the Atlantic coast. The path to becoming a global power didn't start with a massive military expansion. It began when the young nation's leaders realized they could exploit the financial desperation of those very empires. Early American trade relied entirely on the Mississippi River to move goods to market, but its mouth was controlled by the French. Meanwhile, Napoleon needed immediate cash to invade Britain, outweighing his interest in a North American empire. When the Americans offered to buy New Orleans, Napoleon countered with the entire Louisiana Territory. For $15 million, the United States doubled in size without fighting a single battle. This sudden expansion matched a massive population boom. With the average family having 7 children, the national population was doubling every 2 decades, creating a desperate demand for the millions of acres of farmland now available in the West. This transaction showed that when European empires faced bankruptcy or military crises, the United States could step in to acquire their holdings for a fraction of their worth. The strategy became more aggressive as American settlers moved into northern Mexico. They quickly outnumbered the local population and rebelled, breaking Texas away into an independent republic. In 1845, the U.S. annexed Texas, triggering a border dispute that led directly to a full-scale war with Mexico. After a decisive military victory, the U.S. coerced Mexico into a $15 million buyout of its northern territories. A few years later, they added another $10 million for the remaining southern borderlands. At the same time, diplomats negotiated a bloodless treaty with Britain to split the Oregon Territory, effectively finalizing the nation's northern boundary. They even looked for legal loopholes to claim land for free. The Guano Islands Act allowed U.S. citizens to occupy random, uninhabited islands around the world, specifically to harvest fertilizer and resources. Within just 50 years, the United States had used a mix of coerced buyouts, treaties, and legal claims to secure a continuous landmass from one ocean to the other. Even after the internal trauma of a civil war, a reunified America resumed its expansion, this time looking beyond the continent. They found another bargain in Russia. Strapped for capital, the Tsar agreed to sell the massive territory of Alaska for just $7.2 million. In the Pacific Ocean, American businessmen staged a corporate takeover of Hawaii. Fearing that Japan or Germany might use the islands as a base to attack the coast, the U.S. government annexed the territory for defense. The U.S. then moved against the collapsing Spanish Empire. A brief war ended with America capturing Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines, effectively ending centuries of Spanish presence in the Americas. To connect these far-flung territories, President Theodore Roosevelt backed the creation of Panama and paid $10 million for the right to build a canal, physically joining the Atlantic and Pacific fleets. These overseas territories functioned as strategic naval checkpoints, allowing the United States to project and protect its commercial interests on a global scale. The shift over 4 centuries was total. In 1492, North America was a blank space on a map, ignored by the major powers. By 1914, it was a transcontinental superpower, with colonies across the Pacific and a vital interoceanic shortcut. This real estate was now protected by the second-largest navy in the world, a force built specifically to enforce American interests in any corner of the globe. This dominance was the result of long-term opportunism, the compounding effect of waiting for rivals to go bankrupt and standing ready with the capital to buy them out. As the world entered the chaos of the early 20th century, the United States had successfully moved from being a localized afterthought to becoming a global landlord.